this series, as I actually have a picture of Hayden Christensen as Anakin up here, simply because I think that this was the biggest news that came out of the Obi Wan series announcement. And basically that Hayden Christensen is going to come back, return, and play Darth Vader. So the Obi-Wan series is another one. I mean, I would say even before the Ahsoka series, this was the one that everybody expected to come after The Mandalorian, because this was announced around that time. You had basically the big three. You had The Mandalorian, you had Andor, you had Obi-Wan. So we've known about this stuff for a long time. And we've speculated, and there's been rumors upon rumors about the Hayden Christensen thing. And that's where I kind of want to put the focus, because what were some of the details that we got about Obi-Wan? Let's start there. Go ahead and and give us some of those, and then let's go into some of this Hayden Christensen stuff.
All right, so last August at D23 Expo, Lucasfilm announced the return of Ewan McGregor in the iconic role of Jedi Master Obi Wan Kenobi for a special event series on Disney+. Officially titled Obi Wan Kenobi, the series begins 10 years after the dramatic events of the Star Wars Revenge of the Sith, where he faced his greatest defeat, the downfall and the corruption of his best friend and Jedi apprentice Anakin Skywalker turned evil Sith Lord Darth Vader. The series is directed by Deborah Chow, who helmed the memorable episodes from Mandalorian Season 1. This will truly be a day long remembered, as it's confirmed as Hayden Christensen will return as Darth Vader. This will be the rematch of the century, Kennedy said. That'll be Kathleen Kennedy. It was such an incredible journey playing Anakin Skywalker, said Christensen. Of course, Anakin and Obi-Wan aren't on the greatest of terms when we last saw them. So it will be interesting to see what the amazing director like Deborah Chow has in store for all of us. I'm excited to work with Ewan again. It feels so good to be back.
Yeah, so I think that a lot of this stuff, and again, there wasn't a whole lot of surprise. I mean, the Obi-Wan series has probably been talked to death.
Right.
At least as far as this is what the storyline is. Some of the only things, and this is where I'm putting the focus today, some of the things that have been answered for us is, one, the timeline. Because we knew, obviously, it's going to be in between 3 and 4. But what we didn't know was where in between 3 and 4. Is it going to be like 2 years after 3? Is it going to be like 3 years before 4? So it looks like it's an interesting choice that it's essentially because there's like 20 years or something between 3 and 4. And it looks like this is right down the middle. So it's really interesting to me that they're choosing this part. And the fact that they're having Hayden coming back as Vader and not a flashback of Anakin Skywalker, I think is really interesting. Although, don't get me wrong, I'm sure there's probably going to be flashbacks in this. I don't doubt it. I mean, I don't have any confirmation on that, obviously, but I don't doubt it. But here's the thing. How do you feel about it? And what do you think? Because I have a few thoughts, but there's also some precedents, because the big thing, and you can address this in your comments, is, how are they going to do this? Because there are some people that they basically fall into one of two camps. It's either Vader and Obi-Wan met again from, they hadn't seen each other since the Mustafar duel. They meet again in A New Hope. And there's other people that say, no, there's dialogue in A New Hope that supports, and this is the camp I fall under, that supports them actually meeting at some point before then.
Right.
And I was actually talking to one of my friends today about it. And I even told him about the conversation you and I had on the show like a week ago or something, where, you're kind of like, no, but wait, there's this, that, and the other. And I'm like, well, it's true, but I don't know. I'm still kind of going for this is possible, and obviously it's happening. So,
well, yeah, I mean, this is definitely, it's a definite possibility that, okay, of course, I can't even say it's a possibility at this point, because Kathleen Kennedy so much has confirmed that there's going to be a rematch. She says this will be a rematch of the century. So, I mean, like, so, I mean,
she's using that famous Filoni J.J. Abrams misdirection. Yes.
Well, I mean, because you have to look at it from the standpoint of like, okay, like you said, the last time we saw them was at the end of Revenge of the Sith, when, of course, Anakin is like burning beyond recognition, and then the next time we see them is A New Hope on the Death Star. Now, of course, we know the line, that Vader, utters like, "When I left you, I was a better learner, but now I'm the master." And then he said, "Well, only master of evil, Darth." Well, I've always said that doesn't necessarily mean that they fought again, because, yeah, when he did leave, like, he was still a Jedi Knight. He hadn't received the rank of master yet. So he still was a Jedi. He was still a learner, technically.
Mm-hmm.
When he comes back and he says, "But now I'm the master." Yes, only a master of evil, though. So, yes, you're a Sith Lord. You're a what's basically a Jedi Master, just on the dark side. So, by that, yes, you can say there was no rematch. But, of course, now with Kathleen Kennedy, apparently there is. Which is fine.
Yeah.
But my thing is, see, my biggest question is going to be this. Apparently there's going to be some rematch. One, okay, let's say Alec Guinness is playing maybe Obi-Wan at maybe 65 years old.
Well, I mean, here's the thing then. We were going over this whole timeline too, is that if you go 10 years after episode 3, then Obi-Wan is about 45. That's how old he should be.
Okay, so
in this. But the
right.
problem is that doesn't totally, I mean, it gets real close, because Alec Guinness, I think, was like 62 or 3 or something like that.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. Like, okay, if Alec Guinness is like roughly...
he would have been like 55, technically.
55.
That's how old he should be.
Okay. I thought he was moving around like he was 80. But
well,
anyway,
that's
besides the point.
And again, it was a limited, and a lot of that, we all know that, you know, at the time, Lucas was like, no, lightsabers are heavy, like broadswords.
Well, I'm not even talking about that. I'm just talking about the way he moved, like he was moving like a grandpa. He looked like a grandpa anyway.
Tatooine, man.
I mean,
it wears
maybe
you out.
Yeah, I was like,
it's
maybe
like the desert sand. It like ages a man.
I was like, I guess so. The heat is making him crazy. But my whole thing is, okay, so we're going to say that, Anakin not Anakin, Vader and Obi-Wan meet up again. How do you explain that to the Emperor?
Oh, you don't.
But I mean, like, okay, like...
You have to tell him everything, man.
But I'm just saying,
it doesn't have to be like,
But I'm just saying, like, okay, so you mean to tell me that Obi-Wan meets up and he confronts Vader yet again, and then now they're like having a duel.
I wonder though if it's going to actually
Emperor's
be a
not
duel,
going to feel
though.
that in the Force.
Well, yeah, but then again, if you remember, the Emperor, he wasn't dealing with the Emperor in the first time either. In A New Hope, we never see the Emperor.
No, we never do. But I mean, like I said,
you're just assuming that he went and told him about it.
No, I'm just saying, like, okay, so in A New Hope, he's like, he is here. Obi Wan Kenobi. Yes, and the Force is with him. Okay, but, I thought you were the last of that whole religion.
You can just see Tarkin's like, wait a minute.
Yeah, so it's like, okay.
Now you told me.
Like, so my thing is like, and of course, Tarkin definitely knows who Obi-Wan is. So my whole thing is like...
he looked kind of freaked out when he said that, like, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
And exactly, so like, okay, let's put it this way. If Vader didn't tell him, Tarkin had to.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying that it can... You don't necessarily... This is a problem that I have sometimes with Star Wars fans.
What's your problem, man?
Oh, and we didn't think we were having Duel of the Fates today.
It's a real duel.
So yeah, Duel of the Fates. Should Vader be an Obi-Wan or should he not be an Obi-Wan? But I mean, a lot of it is that, and again, this is where you start to lose the fantasy aspect of it. It's like, I mean, I understand what you're saying because and this is something that we've talked about a lot, is that the more they play in the sandbox of this already established timeline, you start to risk screwing up the whole canon a little bit here because you're going to paint yourself into a corner. I fully agree with that. But the thing is that, yes, Tarkin may have told him. Yes, Vader may have told him. We don't know. Doesn't matter. We don't even know that he really told him the first time. We never really see it.
Right.
I mean, obviously there was like a little deleted scene or there was an original scripted version of Return of the Jedi where Obi-Wan's Force Ghost was actually supposed to face the Emperor again. The Emperor, I'm sure, is quite aware of it, but you have to remember, and you really get the sense, if you read Lords of the Sith, and especially if you read a lot of the comics that have been coming out, particularly the Darth Vader series, you get a feel for the way that the Emperor handles Vader.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain things that, like, he knows is going on, but it's kind of like he's trying to let Vader pretty much handle it, learn to be a Sith Lord, that kind of thing, or do things that will be used against him. So it's not necessarily like he'd be, like the Emperor may very well sense it. But let me get to some of these chats because this is getting kind of
crazy.
Yeah, kind of crazy. So Ronaldo chatted a bunch of stuff. He was like, Thunderball is cool. It's the way to go. So,
we're all the way back there.
Yeah. So, just as a rewind for anybody that may be popping in, I was saying that I've been going back through the James Bond movies, and I was kind of like, well, which one should we do? And Ronaldo, you put out 3, of course, very good ones. I mean, and then, of course, Daryl mentioned Thunderball. Ronaldo agrees. So I think Thunderball will officially be the one that I'm going to do. Then he goes on to say, very happy Hayden is back, but I highly doubt that they will bring him back to be Vader and not as Anakin. So I imagine there will be a Clone Wars flashbacks with Hayden. Well, the problem is they kind of already confirmed he's coming back as Vader, though, in this announcement. And that's why we're having this discussion, and we're, that's why there's some problems. He also says, scares me a little is what Kathleen Kennedy said about rematch. Personally, I don't want Kenobi and Vader to fight before A New Hope. And that's basically a little bit, before I get to the rest of these, that's a little bit where I was going with this, is the fact that I don't necessarily think that rematch has to mean lightsaber duel. It certainly implies that. Don't get me wrong.
Well, yeah.
But I mean, I'm just saying that there is a little bit of wiggle room there. Like, you can get away with not having it. They could face each other somehow. I can't imagine them facing each other and not igniting their blades.
Well, I could see that because of some conversations that happens later on in the films. So, when Vader was talking to Luke, Obi-Wan once thought as you do. Mm-hmm. You don't know the power of the dark side. I must obey my master. And I think that was probably, what we're probably going to see is Obi-Wan's last attempt to try and bring him back. Now, there's this, what also alludes to that there was another confrontation.
Yeah, when he says you should not have come back.
Well, no, not that part, because once again,
I'm adding that though.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I know they were talking about at that moment, but they were just, I don't know, there was certain things that were said during that kind of, they could have had a double meaning. And again, do I really think that Lucas's original intent? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, when he says, he's more machine now than man, twisted and evil.
Mm-hmm.
So that whole line right there is just like, okay. Like, granted, one, he's probably shocked that Anakin even survived that whole thing because he saw him like, okay.
Well, and that was the point. That was actually what I was telling my friend, and what you alluded to is the fact that was one of the things that I was using as proof that they did face each other. But you're like, well, wait a minute, though. He knew his name was Darth Vader. Okay, you turn on the holonet, you see a dude named Darth Vader. It's like, oh, well, I guess he's in a suit and he survived, and, wow. Guess he's more machine now than man.
Right, because I lopped off his legs. He's already missing an arm, and then I lopped off that one, and so,
Kind of like, man, but I had the high ground.
right, exactly. I should have been higher.
Right, I should have had the higher ground.
So, yeah, so I think that's probably what we're going to see. We're probably going to see like Obi-Wan's last, because at this point Obi-Wan's at a state of peace, but of course he's probably not going to he's not letting on to Vader that I have your kid either, because if he
Yeah, well, when I get to these chats, that's where I really want to go with this conversation, is that the problems that this brings up, because it brings up several.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I mean, do I want to see Darth Vader in anything? Of course I do.
Definitely.
Do I want to see him interact with Obi Wan Kenobi? And I have to trust that because Deborah Chow is the showrunner, and she so far proven amazing and really good, then I think I can probably hang with it maybe, but that remains to be seen. Okay, Ronaldo says, now, if they do it in a way that Obi-Wan fights with a vision of Vader or something like that, yes, bless the visions in Star Wars, because that's the way that they can get away with all kinds of stuff. As long as it's not the real Vader, I think it can work. Yes, look at us Star Wars apologist fans going crazy. We will help you, Lucasfilm. We will figure out a way to make this work so, everybody's happy. It goes on to say, I think Obi-Wan can use his saber skills without using Force so the Emperor doesn't feel him. That's possible, but the other thing that you got to look at, too, is that I'm not entirely sure. This is where they've been a little bit convoluted about that, and this is true even in the comics, where what the Emperor feels and what he doesn't feel, because I think what you have to do to work this out in your head, and we're going to get into a little nerdy and geeky stuff here, so fair warning, but
Definitely.
there was a point where the dark side was being blocked by Yoda during the time of the original trilogy, very similarly to the fact that Palpatine was blocking the light side back during the prequel trilogy. Now, the question becomes, when did this transition take place? When was Yoda able to start successfully doing it? Did he land on Dagobah? This little hatch thing opens on that adorable little spaceship he was in, or that pod. He kind of looks around, maybe sets up his little cave and, grabs a bite to eat and gets right to work. Like, yep, blocking the dark side starting now. Or did it take a little while? So remember, this Obi-Wan series takes place in the midpoint. So when did that happen? And it is conceivable that Yoda could have been working on this, blocking the dark side, because remember, the Emperor didn't sense everything. I mean, he was even, going to Vader, like in Return of the Jedi. Well, like, are you sure? When he was...
I felt him. He's like, strange, I have not.
Yeah, right. Like, I don't know, man.
Well, see, and the only reason why I said Obi-Wan was because Obi-Wan was powerful. He wasn't just like, he was a very powerful Jedi.
Sure. I mean,
and so like
the problem is he was dispatched within 5 minutes in virtually every duel that he fought with the really heavyweight Sith guys. But yes, we should clarify that Obi-Wan is a very powerful Jedi.
Now, one of the things that I've always speculated against, once I realized that Yoda did block he was using the Force and Dagobah to kind of amplify the Force so he can block Palpatine. I wonder if that wore him out before, and that's why he eventually died.
We know that species needs to take a little bit of a nap.
Well, yeah, now we do.
Like they're powerful Force users, but man, it wears them out like something fierce.
But they don't have a whole lot of bodies, so that's why.
Yeah, now when you stop and think about it, because the Force flows through you and all that stuff, it's kind of like if you're the size of like pretty much a coffee mug, I guess. You don't really have a whole lot. It's kind of like people who like barely weigh anything and they try to drink a lot and we wonder, well, why after 2 beers am I like flying? It's like because you have like nothing there, man.
Your stomach's the size of a peanut.
Exactly. Which means your liver is probably like maybe
a Skittle.
Yeah. Okay, so now we get to something good here. Kim Rasmussen says, the only thing I want to hear from them is we are selling the IP, which is intellectual property, by the way. They clearly have no respect for it, and they don't know what to do with it anyway.
Wow. All right, Kim.
Okay, well.
The dark side flows through.
You know what? But this is...
But I understand her, though.
Exactly.
I completely understand her.
And again, I can't stress this enough, is that Disney has to, and I think that they're successfully doing this, starting with The Mandalorian, and it seems like they're doing some cool stuff with everything else. I think they're fixing it. They're going to fix it in television, and then what they're going to do is they're going to go in and they're going to try to fix the movie situation, because they did drop the ball in the sequels. Even people that like the sequels, I don't think that you can really deny that.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think that you can deny that there was a lack of planning. They didn't handle it right. They did pretty much everything wrong. The fact that these movies were even halfway decent is miraculous.
Right. I think people just want to go see them just because they want to see the conclusion, and you got to see how it ends at this point,
Well, and then you get people that are all like, oh, well, like Favreau or Filoni or whatever is going to redo episodes 7, 8, and 9, or George Lucas is going to come back and, do all this stuff. And it's like, I think that's wishful thinking. But the fact that that's what people want, I mean, think about it. Star Wars goes from, this is like the best movie ever made, and pretty much people feel that way through the whole thing. Empire Strikes Back, it's like the best sequel ever done.
Yep.
So the original trilogy enjoys this really exalted status. Prequels, okay, they kind of had that was the first chink in the armor, but the sequels,
oh, that obliterated.
I mean, people are like, could we remake them? I mean, even as much hate as the prequels got, which, by the way, people are starting to actually come back to. People are kind of like, hey, the sequels are actually, or the prequels rather, people are actually having warm feelings about. They're saying like, hey, they were kind of cool. And there's even love for Jar Jar, which that I don't understand. But, I mean, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
But I think that, like Kim is saying, there is a certain part, a big part, I should say, of the fan base that they got to win back.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think they've lost the trust in a lot of the fans. I think the only reason why a lot of people didn't, I think a lot of reasons people didn't hate the prequels as much as the sequels is because, one, you kind of know where the story had to end.
Yeah.
1. 2, you got great characters in Darth Maul. Like, he saved the prequels. 3.
And Dooku.
It's George Lucas. Like, I mean, it's the same guy who created it. The problem is when you got away from him, it's no different than how we say about iPhones. Like, when Steve Jobs was living, oh yeah, iPhones were great because, he's kind of the mastermind behind it. Once he died and everything else kind of started going away from his original intent, now you start seeing the chinks in the armor a little bit more. It's still a great, device, but, or in the case of Star Wars, yeah, some things that were cool about it. Like, we got some cool characters. We got a Kylo Ren. We got, some force powers that we've never seen before. We've gotten some cool things out of it, but then there's more harm, unfortunately, than good. And unfortunately, all those cool things couldn't save the sequels.
Yeah, and I think that that's important to note, too, is the fact that you definitely had a situation with the prequels where the characters were cool, the story was good, and more importantly, it was planned out.
Right.
And I think that that's really where the sequels suffered the most.
Definitely.
In fact, I think that everything that you can say was wrong with the sequels, you can go back to poor planning or no planning. Mm-hmm. Ronaldo says, in the comics, he cut off from the Force so they could use that. Yeah, that's true. In the Obi-Wan, it was either the Obi-Wan or Star Wars, one of the comics where they actually showed that Obi-Wan cut himself off, kind of like pulled a Luke in a way.
Right.
So that's true. Ronaldo goes on to say, I think there is something very special when you see them in episode 3 and then in 4 after a long time. And I think if they fight before episode 4, it would lower the impact a bit.
I agree.
Oh, unquestionably.
I agree.
On the other hand, or I'll pull a Frasier, although
Go on.
It could also heighten it, depending on how they handle it.
Yeah, I mean, you really have to, like, if they had some. Now, to me, I just think that if you have Vader and Obi-Wan show up before Episode 4, and they have some sort of confrontation or they see each other, I think that dialogue has to be gripping.
Well, absolutely.
Like, that dialogue has to be like almost Oscar winning. You know what I'm saying? Just because because when you look at the friendship, the relationship of these two men, you know, from literally basically Obi-Wan raised Anakin. From a kid to a man.
No, you're right.
And then, you know, only for, you know, it's kind of like that moment when, like, if, you know, people have ever had that situation happen where your parent, like, kicked you out of the house or something like that. Like, that's essentially what happened. It's like, okay, and he's pleading with Anakin. Man, I even liked, you know.
I almost had that happen.
Yeah, me too. But, you know, you see that part where, you know, Obi-Wan's just, like, pleading with Anakin. It's like, you know, my allegiance is to democracy. Like, it's not about this.
Yeah, see, I thought that dialogue was cool.
It was. And then, you know, if the fact that Anakin is like, you know, had his back turned towards him, it's like, well, if you're not with me, then you're against me. It's like, only the Sith deals in the absolutes. You know, I must do what I must. And it's like, well, you will try. You know, then that's just like, and it just goes off. So that tension right there, that needs to happen again. If there's not going to be any sabers going on, that dialogue has to make it, so it has to give that credence to 4 again, where it says, you should not have come back. Because I told you last time, I'm not going to let you out of here again.
I'm pretty sure. Now, I don't know who's executive producing this thing, but I'm pretty sure, especially Deborah Chow getting her fill of, like, Filoni probably telling her all this stuff. And I'm sure that he's kind of guiding some. It wouldn't surprise me if he actually executive produced or something. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, I have to believe that they're thinking along those lines. I mean, I say it a lot about a lot of things, but it's like, if it can occur to me,
right?
Surely these professional people that are doing this.
Been doing this for years.
Exactly. It's got to occur to them. But then again.
But a lot of times, and that's what I think, a lot of times people try to reinvent the wheel. A lot of people try to put their stamp on Star Wars because it's like they want to say, like, well, that was my movie and that was my thing, and I brought that, you know, to Star Wars, instead of just sticking true to what, like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Like, you just add to. Don't try to recreate or redefine Star Wars. Mm-hmm. Because I think once you start doing that, now you're starting to go to the dark side, shall we say.
No. I totally agree, actually. I mean, I think that's the problem is, like you said, they got to handle this correctly. They can't mess this up. Because if they do, it's going to cheapen the whole scene.
Yeah.
Then Ronaldo goes on to say, I really like the sequels, but they are a mess. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I like The Force Awakens a lot. You know, I like The Last Jedi. I like what they were trying to do, but there were so many problems with it. Rise of Skywalker was a really good, fun movie. But again, he really had an uphill battle on that. There was almost no way they could have ended that movie. Now, again, Duel of the Fates, the script that Colin Trevorrow had,
mm-hmm.
I read that and I say, well, wow, okay, maybe it could have been cool. You know, who knows? Ronaldo also says, but I think that right now they recognize their mistakes and they actually know what they are doing with a good plan. He emphasizes plan. Oh, that beautiful word, he said. Yeah, well, exactly. And then, of course, Kim writes in, they have a whole galaxy to choose from. Hutt Empire. Yeah. And we've said that. Make a crime drama with the Hutts.
Yeah.
And the bounty hunters and all this other stuff. And this is where they can get into more genre films and stuff like that. I think that that's really what they need to do. They need to start moving in a direction that is not so incestuous with all these characters. I mean, that's what I like about The Mandalorian, actually, is the fact that they're bringing in some of the familiar characters that we know and love, but they're expanding that universe. They're world building. They're giving us a story that is not the Skywalker story or an extension of it. It's a completely different thing. And that's why I like the whole Baby Yoda / Grogu thing, because it's a Jedi story, but it's not, at least at this point, involving the Skywalkers.
Right.
Which I think is really cool. But that was one of the reasons why I brought this up. Like, you saw that I started the segment with Anakin instead of Obi-Wan. Or, you know, the Obi-Wan logo, because that's basically, I've been starting all these. I've been putting the logo of the show. But I really felt like the conversation around that is really around how Darth Vader is going to be in this thing now that we pretty much know he is. Now, let me ask you this. Did they say anywhere that James Earl Jones is doing the voice?
No, and that's my next big thing.
Yeah, that was, I mean,
because
you have to.
It's going to, if you don't have James Earl Jones do it, I mean, here's my thing. I think you bring in Hayden Christensen because I believe there's going to be some sort of duel.
Well, actually, that actually brings up a good point anyway. I mean, you could put anybody in the suit.
Exactly.
Why are you bringing in Hayden Christensen?
Exactly. That's my whole point. Why are you bringing him in? But we know that, okay, we know he knows how to use, or, you know, the prop of a lightsaber, because he went through the whole training with Ewan McGregor before.
Yeah, that was like, 15 years ago. Well, I guess, yeah, it's like muscle memory, but...
Yeah, but I mean, he's done it before, and that was an extended fight, man. I mean, that went on for like a while.
I know.
So my thing is it's like, all right, well, he had to learn all that choreography for that. So if you're gonna bring that type of duel back, shall we say, almost kind of like the one we always talked about, that one fan made, thing. How?
Yeah. See, if you're gonna do something like that, now this is what I'm talking about. It's like when Lucas is tinkering with these things and making these endless special editions, why don't you put that in there?
I know, right?
You're giving us like extra,
Jawas or
stormtrooper
line or
dewback bones and all this other stuff. And I mean, hey, I'll applaud him though for putting that whole Han Java thing in there, because again, that's there's meat there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you're gonna do it, you saw the fan did it. I mean, made this just incredible. I mean, if you guys haven't seen it, just search I don't know, like Obi-Wan Vader duel.
Redone.
Yeah, redone or something like that. I forgot. It's been a while since we've watched that. But yeah, I mean, it's spectacular. It's like, this is a way the thing should have been done in the first place.
Yeah. But see, that's what I'm saying. I think that, when you have someone like Hayden Christensen coming back, it's like, okay, well, what do you really need him in the suit for? I mean, unless you're trying to show, like I said, him taking his helmet off at some point, and you want to show that it's the same person. I mean, like I said, I could see it for that reference point.
I will say this, though. It would be good to actually have this, because it'll be a little less weird to see his Force Ghost at the end of Return of the Jedi if they do that.
Yeah. I mean, I think, like I said, if you show different parts, like, okay, he might be in his little chamber or something getting cleaned up or whatever, and you see his Hayden Christensen or, something to that effect, then I think it lends more like, okay, I see why you did that. But I think my thing is, just don't put those scenes in there, because you're bringing Hayden Christensen, a really trained actor, for what? Just to say that you have that scene? No, I think you're really bringing him in because he's going to be acting and doing something more in that suit, and we definitely know he's not doing the voice. So yeah, I think there's going to be some sort of duel.
I know, but don't forget Disney, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they own Lucasfilm, they own Marvel. They're the same company that brought Vin Diesel in to say, "I am Groot," and pay him millions of dollars.
That's true.
It's like,
that's true.
I mean, they could be doing that just because, hey, listen, if you get Hayden Christensen in it, everybody starts talking about it.
That's true.
Then again, though, I mean, it is Darth Vader. It's like, I mean, who was in the suit in Rogue One?
Mm-hmm.
Ronaldo says the video is called Star Wars SC-38 Reimagined. That's good. See, he's kind of like an honorary...
Jason?
Well, yeah, there's Jason. Well, Jason Ronaldo's good at researching all this stuff, like kind of on the fly. Jason does the same thing, though, actually. But yeah, I mean, these are the kinds of things that they just have to answer. They have to give us some definitive thing. We really need to find out more. This is the one of all the announcements. This is the one I think that people are like, wait a second now. Let's lay some ground rules out.
Where are you
going with this? Because
Exactly.
now you're starting to tamper with, the actual canon. So again, what do you guys think, though? You know what we think. What do you guys think of Hayden Christensen coming back as Darth Vader? Do you think that this is a good idea? Do you think it spoils the current canon? Do you think it's something necessary to enrich it? We would love to know your thoughts. Leave in the comment section below. You still have time to chat in. Hey, while you're leaving a comment, don't forget to check out some of our other videos. You'll see some stuff in the comment section, as well as leave a like, subscribe to our channel, hit that notification bell.
Bing.
Yeah, find out when we're coming out with all kinds of other stuff, because we're doing review shows now. We're starting to do those on Mondays at 8 o'clock. We have a regular show on Fridays at 8. So, we'd love to have you guys join us for that.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you, always.